I personally believe that critical race theory is not a good thing to have taught in the schools. I've been a teacher and I've taught elementary school and I've taught elementary school history and social. And I've been a teacher in a classroom who had to introduce children to the idea of racism that have never heard of it, never talked about it, never even thought about it. And they play with children of different colors every day. The problem, though, with not teaching about racism and not, we are still going to be taught about racist people. We'll still have to learn, study, and be taught to admire of this country who owned other human beings. And if you don't introduce the atrocities that these people perpetrated, well, that's wrong. And once the topic of racism, particularly slavery, once that topic is introduced to young children, really, I believe to anyone, it kind of changes their perspective. I think that white kids are forever changed. Black kids are forever changed. I think there's a sense of either shame or anger that comes over the black kids. There's a sense of confusion that comes over both. A mindset for the white kids of superiority. And it's kind of unavoidable. I think that it kills the self-esteem and dignity of black kids. And I think that's where a victim mindset begins. A perpetual feeling of, if not inferiority within yourself, perceived inferiority from others onto yourself. No one would expect Jewish kids to be studying Hitler and studying how great he was, right? How great certain presidents were and certain people were, when we know full well that they were things to other human beings, women, children, raping of children, and, the atrocities that Christopher Columbus, it's just disgusting. If you know about Christopher Columbus, you know the things he did was absolutely disgusting. And so, if you talk about one thing, you have to talk about everything. You can't sugarcoat one situation and indoctrinate the masses. This is a deep topic. I think what needs to be understood is that Black history is American history. We don't need a special month. We don't need a special book. Black history should be part of history that children learn in school, and it should just be natural. History books and curriculums have been designed to create a facade that no one has accomplished anything in the world except white people. So a lot of things have to be kind of rebooted. Black people does not begin with slavery. And that, it's shameful for a couple of paragraphs about slavery to be all children are learning about their black neighbors. It's really embarrassing and it's disrespectful. The only piece that has come, the only reason progression has even taken place in this country is because of interracial marriages. And, there's so much race mixing. And so it's kind of inevitable that people are going to start learning and liking each other. Make this as simple as possible and explain this in very elementary terms. There is the idea that brown people are bad, okay? All across the world. And that's a problem. And people have suffered. People are suffering. And, my issue with Black people that have come forward in city council meetings and school board meetings, standing to emphatically proclaim that there's no such thing as racism and they've never experienced racism, and that's crap. So I want to clean up that message and, being as though I lean more conservative than anything else, I understand what they are getting at. But to just tell young people that there is no racism, that are experiencing racism, is wrong. And it's dismissive, it's gaslighting, is a bad thing. I've experienced racism, extreme racism, my entire life. I was friends with white kids, white boys that were not allowed to have black people in their homes, that were not allowed to talk to black girls on the telephone. This is something that was normal. I'm not that old. Recently, I've been called the N-word. I've been told that I'm a piece of SHIT. Particularly now that I'm a Muslim, I've been told I don't belong in this country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, I'm from Virginia. My ancestors are from Virginia, okay? I identify as an American, not an African American. It should be said by these people instead of there is no racism. I never saw racism. What do you mean racism? Even some celebrities have come out to say that. I think it's dangerous. It's damaging to do that. What should actually be said is, sure, there's racism. Sure, there are people that don't like me because I'm black, but who cares? So what? It's not going to stop me from doing anything that I want to do, accomplishing anything that I want to accomplish. It will not. What you think about me doesn't affect me in the slightest. My father had a college degree from the University of Utah. I know he experienced racism there. Didn't stop him whatsoever. You understand? That is what we should be telling them. You can read the comment section on any random YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook thread and see a whole lot of racism, a lot of it, a whole lot of prejudice, a whole lot of disrespectful comments and things like that. So we're not going to pretend that racism doesn't exist. What you want to do is encourage people to not be defeated by racism. Now, people in positions of power can execute harmful things onto black people or Asians or, Latinos. We know that can happen, and we know that it does happen. We run into problems with the whole affirmative action thing when people are hired because of their skin color and not because of their credentials. The only reason why that was put into play is because there were people of color that had credentials and were not being hired. We're not being promoted. We're not being accepted. We're not being given the loan or the apartment or, So it's almost impossible to rectify this. It's a difficult situation, and I am not in any way saying that I have all the answers, because I don't. But I will tell you this. This is my country. This is my country because this is where God saw fit for me to be born. Therefore, I love this country. I will fight for my country. I will take care of my country. I will care about the animals and the lakes and the trees. And I will do my best to maintain, the upkeep of my neighborhood and my local forest. And I will try not to litter. I will encourage other people to not do anything that will damage the environment. If you feel that you have strong ties to Africa and that's where you belong and you're proud to call yourself an African American, I encourage you to go to Africa. I encourage you to go there, find work there, move there, and live there. If you feel a bitterness being here, if you feel a disconnect being here, if you feel that you cannot be a happy person living in this country because white people have done this, have done that, are thinking this, are thinking that, if that bothers you to the point where you cannot contribute or be an asset, I encourage you to leave. I do. That black people need to be very well versed on our own history, on our contribution to the world. We need to have pride and dignity for that because we've done a lot of great things and we are major contributors to the planet in a positive way. I do believe that it has been European influence that has caused the whole world to think otherwise. But tell a dark-skinned Indian or Pakistani person that there's no racism. Tell a Dominican or Puerto Rican discouraged from marrying a dark-skinned girl that there's no racism. Tell an Egyptian or Moroccan who would do anything to just be considered pretty in their family, standing next to their white sisters. Tell them that there's no racism. It's very, 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 very bad to pretend that there is no racism. That's not the answer. Ask a girl from Jordan or Syria if she's allowed to marry a black man, and then tell me there's no racism. The lie that brown skin makes you a bad person was spread across the world. It's not just in America. It's everywhere, and it's still very prominent, and it's really sad. And majority of the world, when they think of an American person, immediately they think of a white person's face. And that was impressed upon them on purpose. Black people who were in this country before slavery, and therefore this is their birthright. Many of us can trace our lineage here. Aboriginal Americans have Aboriginal Americans who are black. That's something that people fail to understand. There's no way I could speak in this video long enough to really bring my point across completely. So back to the original idea. The problem that I have with critical race theory is I believe that it teaches black people to expect to be treated poorly. I think it causes depression. It causes a defeatist mentality. And it causes a lack of drive. If you leave the house every day feeling that nobody likes you, you're not going to get a fair chance, everybody looking at you thinks that you're bad, you'll never be able to be successful, you'll never be able to accomplish anything because you have this curse of brown skin, and everybody's looking at you and everybody's pointing at you and nobody likes you, it's not healthy. It's not healthy, and it's not conducive to a good life. You know, it comes from believing that you don't belong. If you live in a country where you believe you don't belong, how are you going to function? Not well. There are people who can barely speak English, but if you ask them about a black American, the first thing they think about is slavery. Why? That is not how you should be identifying anyone. That's not how anyone should feel like they're being identified as a slave, but they are. And living in a neighborhood and going to a school where there are very few black kids and sitting in a classroom with 19 white kids and a white teacher, and the subject of slavery comes up. Can you imagine being that black kid? How small you feel, how much you want to just sink into the floor and disappear? That's not good. It's not helping anything. You know, it's almost to the point where because so many lies were taught and because so much disrespect was encouraged, it's almost like we need to just scrap all of it and just don't even talk about history at all. But it's not possible. We have to talk about things. We have to talk about, George Washington and Andrew Jackson. But you have to tell the truth about Andrew Jackson, what he did to the Native Americans, what he did to the Native Americans, what he did to the Native Americans. Teaching that people who we know mistreated and murdered other people, and teaching that they were great because they helped establish the government that we have in America now and things like that. There is no way around the reality that is a very sinful and low down, disgusting thing to do. You don't do that. But because they had such a hand in the world that we live in today, the society that we live in today, the government that we have today, we have to teach about these people. But we have to have balance and we have to be honest. We just have to be honest. You have to say they did wrong things. You have to. Books need to be accurate and they need to be honest. And they need to include the contributions of other people besides Europeans. This is a must. This is how you begin to mend. This is how America will begin to heal, with honesty. Because once you tell the truth, then people can come together. But lying and presenting things in a way where one group looks great and the other group looks bad. If you believe in God, there's no way that you can sleep at night. Almost worshiping of one group of people and demonizing of another group. There's no way that you're okay with that. If you're okay with it, something is wrong with you, because you would have to know that there's punishment coming for you for that behavior. If you contribute to billions of people hating a group of people, you know you're going to have to suffer the consequences for that. So to avoid that, we need, people need to be humble, be done, because it's a major project to completely eradicate the American history and world history lessons and just start from scratch. I really don't see that happening. So at this point, it's almost as if history needs to be just taken out of the curriculum until you get to university. More truths are spoken at the university level than at the elementary school level, middle school levels, high school levels. So maybe we should just not have history in grade school. Just math, science, grammar, and foreign languages. American kids need to be speaking more than one language. So maybe instead of history, we can put on a few more languages. Black children need to be taught that this is their country. If families want to go deep into finding out their African lineage, then that's something that families can take care of. But if you were born in this country, this is your country. You need to feel it. You need to act like it. You need to be proud of it. And no one else can tell you anything different. No one should be telling you, no white person should be telling you to go back to Africa while they sit in this country, knowing that they are from England. Like, that's ridiculous. So stop doing that. Okay? We need to be one people. My great-grandmother was a very dark-skinned woman. She was born in 1900-something. I don't know. She was almost 100 when she passed away. She was a homeowner. She was a teacher. She was a principal. The only thing that is impossible is what you think is impossible. To be honest, the television, radio, and basically majority of as Black people, for instance, actors need to start having some standards, refusing to play roles that depict Black people one way. Drugs are not in this country because of Black people. I'm just going to throw that out there. And all Black people do not use drugs. All Black people do not grow up without a father. All Black people are not uneducated. All Black people, those ideas that are perpetrated on television, because it's perpetrated on television. It's not reality. The ghetto stuff, all of us don't grow up in that environment. But you would think that we do if you watch television, even Black people, I'm asking you, if you watch television only, Black person, if the only thing you know of Black people is what you see on TV or the news, you would tell your daughter don't marry a Black man too, because there's no balance of representation. If the news only talked about white men who were child molesters, or only talked about white men who family or shoot their families and then shoot themselves, or kidnapping children, the amount of children that go missing because a white man in a van stole the kids. Like, literally, if that's all the news talked about every day was white people molesting, the world would think white people don't do anything as kids. So we know that that's not true. He's in the television shows that just repeatedly force down your face that Arabs are terrorists. I'm a Muslim. You know how many Arabs I know? That is not a reality. It's fake bias. And because in the West, television is your God, what they see on the television as law. I would not want my child sitting in a classroom learning that no matter what they do, white people don't like them and they won't be able to graduate and no one is going to be nice to them and I'm going to tell my children, anybody that doesn't like you can kick rocks. They are not in any way, shape, or form in control of your life. What you're going to do is respect everyone unless and until you have a reason not to. You're going to remember that the only thing that controls you or your destiny besides you is God. And that's it. You have to have the mentality of who cares about how you feel about me? You have to. You have to have the mentality of who gives a fuck? Who cares about how you feel about me? You have to. Until a person is old enough to research and investigate themselves, I don't think that this country is in a position right now to be teaching history. I don't think it's good because I think that it is biased. I think that it is prejudiced. And so we need to just leave it alone. Geography, English, and which is their own language, and foreign languages, mathematics, science. I think that school system needs to focus on that. Leave everything else alone. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. I am currently reading this, and I have already read this. So I'm taking the steps to make sure that I'm not getting one side, one opinion, one viewpoint, but I'm a grown woman. Kids don't always have that desire. They're not always being encouraged by their parents to do that. I think we need to let kids be kids. We need to let them naturally assess the world around them and stop indoctrinating them with these ideas. But you can't control what someone is teaching their children at home. You can't control it. So my biggest point here is I don't agree with critical race theory. I do believe that it's bad for all involved. I don't think that it's beneficial to black kids. I don't think that it's beneficial to amicable relationships between the races. Honestly, I don't subscribe to the idea that black people have a different culture. There's a joke on Roseanne years ago. I always remember this joke. On the show, a friend of the father's was black. The son didn't want to kiss a black girl. He had to kiss a black girl in a school play. So the white family, they were saying, something about black culture. Their son hadn't been exposed to black culture. And the black father says, "What do you mean black culture? What, is a black girl from China? We are Americans. The American culture is what black people experience. American culture is what white people experience. We need to stop acting like there's this great difference, because there isn't. What we want to do is what everyone wants to do is have a good life.